Coming up tonight, he made quite a stir leading up to the 2017 general elections. His often controversial and rogue-like blogs created widespread debates. But now things are different. He's working for the government, helping to improve the transparency in construction. As a registrar of the Ministry of Works, Omar Archer is dealing with the new contractors bill, providing a level of quality assurance. He's here tonight to talk about this and other issues. Beyond the Headlines starts now. Good evening, everyone. I'm Clint Watson, and welcome to the show tonight. It's been a very difficult afternoon for not only Bahamians everywhere, but particularly the Royal Bahamas Police Force, who are tonight mourning the loss of one of their fallen soldiers, a man who many of us saw in public light. He was the aide-de-camp to the Governor General, Her Excellency Dame Margie Pinlin. He was shot fatally this afternoon outside of H.R. National Dolphin Drive, and of course he died at a hospital this evening. Our Theo Seeley has been following this story for us all evening. He is still live at the hospital. We're hoping to connect with him to really talk about what's happening at the hospital and what is the state of affairs out there. Theo Seeley is standing by. Theo, can you give us the latest on what's happening at the hospital at this hour?
Clint, yes, still standing by for police to give us some kind of word as to exactly what is happening on the inside of the Accident and Emergency Unit here at the Princess Margaret Hospital. As you know, we've been stationed here since shortly after 6 this afternoon. It was around 6:24 when police gave us word that the man involved in today's brazen daylight shooting was shot on Dolphin Drive. Now, after we made our way here to the Accident and Emergency Unit, we did see the president of the Police Staff Association, Sonny Miller, entering the Accident and Emergency Unit with Police Press Liaison Shanta Knowles. I tried to get their attention as they were exiting just after our live drop in the top of the Eyewitness News block at 7 o'clock. Both of them, both emotionally distraught, unable to come on camera, even unable to have a simple dialogue with me back and forth to tell me exactly what's happening on the inside of the hospital. We can only imagine that family members and members of the Royal Bahamas Police Force at this hour, Clint, are still very distraught. A shocking, brazen daylight crime, at the front of a school facility. A father went to pick up one of his 2 children. His daughter was in the car with him, as we were made to understand, Clint. The gunman approached him at the vehicle, ordered him out of the car, shot him. His daughter luckily managed to escape the car, and the culprit escaped in the man's vehicle. Now police have launched an island-wide manhunt to find the man believed to be responsible for today's brazen daylight crime. Now, I know that I made a slight error in the earlier broadcast, and our viewers on social media brought it to my attention. The man was not 5 inches tall. The man police believe to be responsible for today's crime is believed to be 5 feet tall, of dark complexion and of slim build. Anyone that may have been in the area of Dolphin Drive today at the time of the shooting, or in the Rock Crusher area where the vehicle that was used to escape the crime was discarded, you ask to contact your nearest police station or police at 911, 919, or Crime Stoppers at 328 TIPS. Clint, we're going to continue to be stationed here at the Accident and Emergency Unit throughout the night, bring you the details as they are made available to us. But right now, police are just too distraught to even speak with us off camera to let us know what the emotions are like for persons on the Royal Bahamas Police Force tonight.
I really can imagine the state that they're in. They deal with this every day and every night, but when it's your own and that close to you, and if we know the kind of person he was, you're affected by it. Have you seen family members going in or coming out? Has there been an increase in police officers coming to the hospital? What's the kind of scene? What kind of scene has it been like there?
Well, as I mentioned, Clint, and as you know, we've been stationed here since shortly before we got the news that the man had died today. We did see a number of police officers entering the facility. No family members, to be exact. There was one person who was standing next to the news crew as we arrived, and she claimed to be a cousin of the family, could give us no information or particulars about the man who had been shot. So no, we have not seen any family entering the accident and emergency unit up until this time. We've only seen police officers entering and exiting the accident and emergency unit, everyone with tears rolling down their face. An emotional afternoon and an emotional evening for police as they continue to hunt for the man responsible for today's crime, Clint.
All right, thanks a lot. Theo Sealy reporting. Thank you so much, Theo, for your work. I know it's been a long day for you, but thank you for staying on the job for that. And I can tell you the condolences are already pouring in. A statement coming in from the leader of the opposition, Philip Davis, moments ago. It says, "My colleagues and I and the entire PLP are simply devastated by the murder of Inspector Carlos Blatch. We ask ourselves how much sorrow and needless death are we to bear? One of our nation's finest has been taken from us, a man who has come into his own and with the promise of a great future in front of him, snuffed out for no good reason." The statement goes on to say, the meanness of the act of murder in front of his child shows us how low we have sunk. No statistical chart can provide any level of satisfaction on the state of law and order. Another good person is dead. Our dear Governor General has been stripped of an able aide-de-camp. The nation bears the scars. We mourn with his family tonight. May God give you peace and comfort. May he rest in peace. Again, for those of you just joining us, we can confirm that Inspector Carlos Blatch, who was the aide-de-camp for Governor General Dame Marguerite Pinling, was shot and killed this afternoon while picking up his child from H.O. Nash Secondary School. He was gunned down and shot to the head. He was taken to hospital, but did not survive. Tonight, the country is in mourning, and indeed, police officers, while in mourning, are on an island-wide search and manhunt for the person responsible. Again, if you have any information of who may be responsible, if you've seen anything, you're asked to call police at 911, 919, or crime tipsters at 328-TIPS. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about something else happening in the country. Stay close. You're watching Beyond the Headlines. We're back after this. And welcome back. Tonight we have a few minutes, obviously left, about half of our show left tonight due to what has transpired in our country. But yet we still want to talk about what we've come to talk about tonight, and that is indeed a major shift in what government is doing to try and provide relief, not only for contractors, but for those of you who will use contractors. And it's a new program by the Ministry of Works, and I'm so happy to have members and representatives from the Ministry of Works here with me to discuss this. We do know, this familiar face we've seen, we know already Omar Archer, who is, give me your correct title now, the Ministry of Works.
Registrar.
Registrar, that's correct. And
John Michael Clark.
John Michael Clark.
I'm with BCA and Veritas
Bahamas Contractors Association. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for joining me on the show on a somewhat turbulent Wednesday, and it's unfortunate we're here under these circumstances. But of course, you have a little bit of good news that hopefully will make people's evenings a little bit more encouraging. There is obviously the new contractors bill has now made room for some things to happen that shores up the industry for contractors, as well as for those who are building, consumers. Let's talk really a bit, first of all, before we come to the contractors bill. Omar, your role. Many people would have seen you before as an activist. People have come familiar to you with your activist movement, but now you're employed with the Ministry of Works as a registrar there. What really is your responsibility?
Well, first and foremost, good evening, and thank you for having me here on Beyond the Headlines. It's a pleasure to be here in your presence and your company. Prior to answering your question, I'd like to extend, on behalf of the minister who sent me a text, condolences to the family of Inspector Blatch. And I want his family to know that we have them in our prayers, and is very sad at what transpired today.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Now, as the registrar, my role as registrar, my primary goal is to ensure that the register is maintained relative to all the contractors in various categories, and there are some 25 categories of contractors. I would also be responsible for ensuring the smooth process of applicants being presented to the board. and ensuring that the list of contractors are gazetted, and also ensuring that every contractor is in compliance with the requirement as set out in the Act, and also the regulations, and once they're come into effect.
How important is having this role? Because I'm thinking this wasn't in place before at the Ministry of Works, hence why we had so many challenges. Why was there a need? Obviously, we know why there was a need, but talk about how effective this has been since coming into play.
Well, we're still in the primary stage, and as it relates to its effectiveness, it won't be known until some time. And to put a timetable on it would be unfair to myself, the ministry, and personally the government. But to say the initiative that has been taken by the minister thus far, and the Minister of Works being that of T. Desmond Bannister, I think the initiative in itself is awesome in terms of trying to regularize the construction industry, which should have been done many years ago, but we're going to get it done now.
Can I?
Sure,
First
sure.
of all, I'd like also to convey my condolences to the family of Inspector Blatch. We are going through some difficult times in this country.
Very difficult, very difficult.
Just to piggyback off of what Omar said, the role of the registrar is very, very important. There has been, over the last maybe 20, 30 years, this floating idea that somewhere there's a licensed contractors list. The Ministry of Housing did something, the Ministry of Works did something, but there is no combined contractors list. What the registrar will make sure is that there is a place where there's a properly gazetted contractors list that consumers can go to and see who's on the list. So if someone purports to be a licensed contractor, the registrar has the proper list, and that's kept up to date. Whether or not persons are current with their qualifications, whether they have the right qualifications, whether or not they're indeed licensed contractors.
Right.
And that's where a lot of people have been getting in trouble now. A guy says, "Oh, I'm licensed by the Ministry of Housing," but what does that mean? There's really no official. You could be recognized, but in terms of criteria for licensing, that's actually set forth in the new Act. And when the board is appointed and persons make the application, the registrar is ultimately responsible for making sure that that list is properly kept and persons on the list have gone through the proper process.
We've heard about the unscrupulous acts of sometimes contractors and the undercutting that goes on. Does this cut back on that? And will there'll be a requirement that if you are on this list, that you have been proven to be above board, that you are current in what it is that you do, like you've said, and that you really are somebody that people can go to and trust if they solicit your service?
The Act provides for two things, two very, very important things. The first thing is it sets a qualification standard. And there are different pathways that persons can go through to achieve that standard. You can get a bachelor's degree, 2 years experience, an associate's degree, 3 years experience. You can have a high school diploma, 5 years experience under an experienced contractor, or prove to the board that you have some relative competency. What the BCA is doing through Veritas Consultants Limited is they are offering now training opportunities for persons that may not have gone any of the traditional formal routes. And this training is providing all contractors an opportunity to get some level of formal training, along with making sure that contractors meet the minimum standards. The bill also has a compensation scheme. And usually on big jobs, you hear about having a bond in place. And the bond is meant to protect the consumer in case the contractor defaults. Well, this Act has a consumer compensation scheme in place which contractors that are licensed have to pay into. In case they default, then consumers have the ability to apply to the compensation scheme.
Wow.
You see? So it's an insurance scheme, essentially.
Oh, that's what it is, insurance.
That gives the consumer a bond-like facility that is usually only exists on very large projects.
Will this obviously this register also provide opportunities for contractors to be able to get opportunities to work from the government? I want to talk about that when we come back right after the break. Stay close. You're watching Beyond the Headlines. We're back after this. And welcome back. We do have representatives here from the Bahamas Contractors Association, of course, Ministry of Works, Registrar for the Ministry of Works, Omar Archer, talking about the Contractors Bill and some of the key factors in that and how it will change the face of the construction industry going forward. How important is it to be a part of this and for people to be, contractors to be involved and included in this?
It's very, there's always strength in numbers. There's always strength in numbers. And what the Bahamas Contractors Association has tried to do in particular is try to galvanize the contractors community to present a unified front. And they have, over the years, been very, very successful in providing key input into the formulation of the bill and the eventual passage of the bill. What the Bahamas Contractors Association seeks to do is to provide opportunities to level the playing field, to give contractors opportunity to help them improve themselves through education, act as advocates for them, and provide whatever training tools are necessary so that in the final analysis, both the consumer and the contractors benefit. And the industry, people think of contractors and they think of a guy with pirates, that's
yeah.
And that's not the case. A lot of times you have well-intentioned contractors, well-intentioned owners, and sometimes it's a lack of education, a lack of understanding of process. And just as you have bad contractors, believe it or not, you have some bad consumers that take advantage of the contractor that is not as enlightened or as educated as he should be.
Omar, one of the concerns of contractors have really been opportunities. Right. Will being a part of this registry afford local contractors more opportunities?
Oh, definitely. And just to comment a little further on what Michael said, as it relates to a unified front, we know that the Bahamas Contractors Association has been established some 60 years ago now. And just a year ago, there was another association formed, if I'm not mistaken, is Moving Forward Contractors Association. And in keeping with his theme in terms of a unified front, we want to create an umbrella to have the entire contractor community under that one umbrella. And the reason why that is so important because of the processes that we're now putting in place. As the contractors now, who are now doing business, we have to look at the act to see where they fall in various categories. And the question one would ask is why? And why that is so important, so that we at the ministry would know exactly who is coming there and for what. And that is very important. We will engage in a process whereas we will review all documentation, starting from the beginning, and put them on file for each contractor. And that process is in process now as we speak. Every single contractor will have to re-register. And following the requirements, this process is very important to ascertain what each contractor has and what they have not. Now, what people do not like, they would say, we have already submitted all these relevant documents and being asked to do so again. And it's very important that they understand that this process that we're putting together, this process will ensure that each contractor is given equal opportunity. However, if all the information is already on file, then we will implement portable scanners and that can be used and will ensure the smooth transition relative to categorizing each contractor. And like I said, there's some 25 different categories of contractors here in the Bahamas. Then we will engage our IT department so that the government has a portal over every ministry. And then the challenge there would be finding out what is already in place that can be used or what needs to be established in order for contractors to upload information in order to be registered. And that is the challenge we're going to face. Now, listings will be posted, like we said earlier, in the newspaper and also in government websites.
Do you anticipate that this obviously will lead to a resurgence of the industry, which has seen difficult times, by people complying? Will contractors comply?
Well, you have no choice. You would have no choice. The act and the purpose for the act is to make sure that persons that operate within the industry meet a certain minimum standard, and for you to operate legally, you would have to comply.
Will there, no doubt with any industry, there will be those bootleggers, the ones who feel that they can work underground and shortcut and circumvent what the law says. What do you say to consumers about those persons?
Well, I would say to consumers, protect yourself. Deal with the licensed professionals. Deal with the persons that have met the minimum criteria. Deal with contractors that have contributed to the compensation scheme. These are the people that would be following the rules. And the government has set in place the framework for proper consumer protection. And this is something that the industry has been dying for years now. So now that it's in place, use it.
Will this bring greater accountability to contractors?
Oh, most definitely.
Definitely.
Most definitely. Hey, you misbehave, you're off the list.
No, when we read the Contractors Construction Act of 2016, which came into effect, if I'm not mistaken, just last year in 2017, the act itself speaks to regulations. And we have now engaged in a process to request drafting of regulations based in Section 40 of the Act, and drafting of the board mandate, drafting of documents for registration of contractors, form, certificate, notice of change, etc. And also we have engaged in the process of disciplinary procedures for the board itself. So we've been very proactive in our approach in regards to this. And like my good learned friend said earlier, we will definitely create a unified front in the end.
What do you want to say to contractors who are out there as we wrap up?
I would encourage contractors to get trained up, get ready, make sure all of your papers, your relevant papers are in place. And very, very shortly, we'd be calling on you to make sure you make the proper submissions so that you can get your license.
And
I'll give you the final word.
And the reason why that is so important, like John Michael said, you see in the news every day about the WTO, all right? And by this time next year, WTO will probably be in effect. So it is important that we follow through on this mandate in terms of regularizing the industry so that Bahamian contractors would be in the driver's seat as opposed to having foreign contractors coming over like they've been doing for the last 60 plus years and monopolizing the industry.
Good note to end on. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on the show and really getting out some good important points. I think a lot of people who are building will be quite happy for it. Yes. Thank you so much. That's our show tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Good night.